So I've done lots and lots of different marginal gains. There's some that I will share today. I think I've got 3 that I want to kind of share, like fundamental ones. And this is more like around process rather than like tactical marginal gains. And so for me, there's 2 that are all about the kind of questions that I ask in a sales process that have really, really kind of, they've basically like 10x'd my predictability in terms of when a deal is going to happen, because I just ask better questions, and refining the quality of my questions has just got me to that point. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So my first example, in the before times, not before COVID, but before this marginal gain, deals would always be kind of slipping around in my world, and sometimes they would just drop out completely as a complete surprise. But I'd forecasted it and said, yeah, that'll happen, and then the customer would go, actually, no, we're not going to do it. And it's like my initial feeling was a feeling of frustration toward the situation, and arguably towards the customer. But actually, it was my fault because I wasn't asking good, high quality enough questions to
way to look at it
to arrive at an accurate outcome of an accurate understanding of the situation. And so, that was holding me back in terms of getting to the next stage of my kind of development, and arguably the next stage of my career. So there are a couple of questions that I introduced that were game changing, and it was just asking an extra question or an extra 2 questions that then completely changed the game. And right at the start of the process, one of the questions that I introduced was, so let's say we can meet your requirements, Mr. Customer, and we prove that to you as part of this process. So let's just, let's be optimists and say that happens.
Thanks for meeting the requirements, Joe.
Yep, thank you. Big tick. And then let's say that when we look at the numbers look okay as well. And so, big green tick there. So once we get to that point in the process, is there anything that will hold you back from moving forward then? And it sounds such an obvious question, right? But people don't ask it. They just assume that, well, if the numbers are right and the requirement is there, then they'll buy it, right? Yeah. That's not always the case. It's just not the case sometimes, because you might not be speaking to the right person. You might not be, they might think the numbers are right, but they just might not have the budget, right? Or they might not have the buy-in from the business in order to execute. They might have to take back
the numbers and say, right, and then they've got other people that are going to tender for it as well.
Exactly. It might be a competitive scenario, so it's not necessarily a sure bet. So at that point, the answer to that question is pretty much always, I don't think so. And so it's like, okay, so they've not actually given it much thought, but you've kind of qualified, okay, well, they've not offered up, well, actually, we need to go to this person. We do need to look at other options. And actually, we're going to be planning on doing this in 2023 rather than 2020. So it's like, well, hang on a minute there. The world is a lot different to what I was expecting, where you prove the requirement, the numbers are right, you buy the thing. It's not always that simple. And so my follow-up to that would be, and I paint the picture. So I say, okay, well, that's great. So if at that point I put the contract to you for signing, so we've, as I say, we've proved the value, we've, the numbers work, the requirement fits, and so I put together the contract. That's usually the next step, and I put that to you. Is that something that you could sign at that point? And then you're putting the pen in the person's hand, and so you then kind of flush out. Well, actually, I'm not the person that's going to sign that. It's not actually me that does the signing. I've got to take it to Bob Jones, who's the CFO or whatever, or the CEO.
I do like Bob Jones,
And actually, in order to get us to that point, we need consensus of 5 other people in the business as well. So you've gone from assuming, because assuming makes an arse out of you and me. You've gone from assuming that the requirement is there, the numbers are there, they'll buy the thing, to understanding this whole other kind of buying cycle that the customer needs to go through in order to kind of get you to the end goal that ultimately you do both want to get to, right? And so there's lots of questions like that I've put into my process that kind of evolved over time, and I've tried to tweak the way that I've asked them to be sometimes more specific, sometimes less specific. Asking questions with more specificity, whatever, with more specificness, right? Means that you in order to answer the question, they have to kind of answer it with that level of kind of detail and accuracy. And the biggest challenge in sales, arguably the biggest challenge in sales, is understanding how the client buys and when they're going to be in a position to buy.
Yeah.
So it's sales processes aren't complicated. Buying processes are complicated. So my process for selling something is find a requirement.
This is how much it's going to cost.
Prove you have a solution to the requirement. Get them to sign it. That's kind of the broad, the broad brush of it, right?
But that's like saying space travel is just, get in a rocket, fly up into space.
True.
Tick.
Exactly. But
there's a lot of spinning parts.
Yeah, there's lots of spinning parts, but the spinning parts are typically on the other side.
Yeah.
They're typically on the buyer side rather than on the sales side, right? I don't have to go through umpteen levels of approval in order to do my job. But in order for a client to buy something, they might have to go through umpteen levels of approval. So the questioning is so kind of important, and that's kind of some of the marginal gains that I've kind of just used to refine my questioning over time. Is kind of crucial to me being as effective as I've been over the last kind of couple of years or so. So I've got another example of questioning that that is kind of probably been the biggest sort of shift change, and that's the question: is there any reason why this wouldn't happen? And I kind of dovetail that into the first question, where, and I use that at every point in the process. It's like, right, you're taking this for approval, you're taking this to the board, but you're really confident that it's going to happen, etc. Is there any reason why that wouldn't happen? Is there any reason why you'd get a no? And then it's like, it's at that. This is a similar reason to the other kind of questioning the kind of the signing process. Adding this question, in my view, gives you a barometer of what objections could come up now or could come up kind of later on down the line that you're going to need to overcome.
It's not necessarily just about the objections, right? It gives you as you said about the barometer, what kind of person they are and whether they're a committed person and whether they're positive. Because if they turn around and they're like, look, I have to speak to someone, but I'm pretty confident. Yeah. You can at least take that back to your side and say, right, well, they are pretty confident, and put that in, put a tick in the box that says this is likely, but not impossible.
So I would ask that would be the way I would do it 5 years ago. But they're confident. It's like, well, I need to be confident. Yeah. And so I'd probably dig a little deeper and ask, is there any reason that you can think of why this wouldn't happen? It's like, well, we might not get the budget approved. We might not this, we might not that, we might not the other. Mm-hmm. If there's more than like a handful of things that would mean that this won't happen, I'm less confident because he or she might be confident. But lots of customers have happy ears. And they don't want to say, I'm not sure about this, Joe. They want to go, I think we're in a great place. They're excited, and so they're feeling positive. But they might get absolutely kicked to the curb by the rest of the business. So it's
an interesting question. I used that when I was trying to buy the house. That's all I was saying to my solicitor. Is like, look, because everyone's confident at that point. Look, I'm confident we can get it in before stamp duty. I'm confident the person is going to buy your house. But in the UK system, it's like, well, people can say, I'm going to buy your house for X amount, and then right until the point of the contracts being exchanged, they could be like, actually, maybe not. See you later. So it's like one of those.
There's like no penalty for doing that.
Exactly.
Either. It's crazy.
And those are the sort of questions. Instead of going in there and be like, when, like tell me when it's going to happen. You just ask those sort of questions. Like, is it, is there anything we're waiting on, or is there any reason why we might not be able to move? Because I'd already started packing up my stuff at this point, and I thought, if it doesn't go my way, like I'm out of pocket, maybe not by thousands, but it's the emotional toll that it takes on you. I had hair before we started doing this 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, you were a happy-go-lucky, excitable, happy guy before you decided, I'm gonna move house again, and then you changed forever, Dan.
I know. It happened out of nowhere as well, didn't it? You were there when we decided.
Yeah, it was. We were just walking around a pond. Or a lake, actually. It wasn't a pond, it was a big lake. And you were like, I think we just might move. And I was waiting in line with Kerry to grab a sausage roll in that cafe.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, I'm trying to convince him to move, somewhere around here and stuff. And I was like, yeah, you absolutely should, and you should move to, further out of where you were. but you didn't need to move up to Scotland or whatever. There's lots of nice places around the area that we are. And then, from there, you then decided, like, the next day, we're going to move. And then the rest was history.
That was literally
and that wasn't even that long ago. That was
Kerry came out and said, Joe said you should move. And I said, what? She said, Joe said you should move. And I was like, oh,
okay.
I have to now. I have to now.
That's it. I'm very good at convincing people to do things. It's kind of what I do for a job. So,
Jedi mind powers.
Yeah,
you will move house. No, I won't. You will move house.
That's what I do. That's all I do. I just do the little wavy hand thing, and then people are like, oh, well, maybe I will. It's been a lot harder on Teams because I have to get my hand in front of my face in order for them to
exactly
to do it.